So portrait in Lightroom, just a heads up, is definitely not as powerful than Photoshop. You don't have frequency separation, which is like a way to retouch a photo. The skin texture, taking all the blemish out with respecting the skin textures. But there are a few things you can do. Plus, I'm going to show you a trick that I really love. So this is the photo I shot of my daughter, Marine, in the studio. I wanted like this was made to be black and white, but I'm going to make it color. And so when you do the overall retouching, you usually don't open the shadows and bring on the highlights like I do on landscape. It's because it's going to give something really weird. So what you do is you open a little bit of shadows and you open, a bit the highlights. You can make it a bit brighter. You can check your black point and you can check your white point. Something like that. That's kind of cool. Then the white balance, I kind of like the white balance that I have there. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit more of light. And, you'd be very gentle. Most of the retouching is going to happen with the brushes on a portrait. So at least the way I do it. Now, I'm going to show you a few techniques plus a little secret that I found from a YouTuber recently, which is amazing. To add just a little bit of contrast in a very, very subtle way. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's look at her skin. The photo is really sharp. I was happy. There's a couple of blemishes, so you can try to use the spot healing brush tool like I'm doing now, to make them disappear. You can try also to use the healing tool at a very low opacity. Let's try that. I haven't tried that, so like very low, like 10%. Let's see if I want to make that shadow a little less. Yeah, doesn't really work. Or let's use the clone tool. You can use the clone tool at a very low opacity. I haven't tried that, so I'm gonna, let's say I want to copy this on here to make that shadow a little less strong. Yeah, it works. It makes that shadow a little less strong, So that's kind of cool. Here there is something kind of weird. Let's go back to heal. Let's go back to 100%. So it's very limited what you can do, but you can do a few things which are kind of cool. And it's really not as powerful as Photoshop. But I can still make a few things. So if I take a brush, I want to make her eyes brighter. So I'm going to go add a bit of exposure, add a bit of contrast, add a bit of sharpness. Something like that. And then I take a little brush and I'm just going to brush in her eyes like this. And then you have to zoom out because eyes, and zoom out and see if you did it too much. So here that's way too much and you backing down until it looks kind of real, but it's got to do something. So check out the before and after. You see it's very subtle, but it's okay. It's actually a little even too much. I'm just gonna, you have to be very careful on the eyes. Okay, then there's a bit of a shadow under her eyes. I want to see if I can improve it. So I'm just gonna double click here. I'm gonna open the shadows, for example. Open the shadows, make a brush that's really small, flow in density in the 80, and I'm just going to brush here to open the shadow. Maybe add a bit of exposure, just a little tad. And there's a bit of a color cast, so I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. There's a bit of blue, maybe let's add a bit of magenta here in the same time. And so I'm just trying to make this a little bit better. Not always easy, I can tell you that. Let's see, no, magenta is not going to do it. Maybe desaturation is going to, no, desaturation, maybe a bit of saturation. Sometimes adding saturation is the way to go. Not in this case. I think just a little bit of highlights there. Let's see, before, after. Yeah, saturation doesn't work for me. I think it's too much saturation. I'm just going to take some saturation off. It's not great, but it's still a bit better. You look at it from far, before, yeah, after. Her eyes are a bit less. But there is too much blue, so maybe we can add a bit of yellow. Yes, yellow was the right way to go. It's not easy. You have to find the right thing. There's a bit of wrinkles under her eyes, but I'm not going to take them out. I'm going to create a new brush for the right eyes. Once you have something that you like, I advise you to just create a new brush for everything that you do. So on this one, I just want to add maybe a bit of exposure. Same thing, not too much, just a little bit of exposure. There, maybe not on a shadow. So like, let's say I painted here and I want to erase what I did here. You can hold on the Alt key. It becomes an eraser and you can just brush. So if I want to keep that shadow there and just do the improvement here. Okay, new brush. I think I want to make that eye, just that eye, even just the right eye a little bit brighter. Just the right eye. Let's see how it works. Yeah, no, the right eye doesn't work. It doesn't work, so I can go back. It just makes her eyes look weird, so I'm going to take that out. Okay. Now, for the skin, I have something which is kind of cool for the skin. Let's make a new brush, which is that double-click on effect. If you go minus clarity on the skin, sometimes you can just blur out a little bit some of the wrinkles, just have a bit of less attention on the body. That's add flow and density a bit stronger. And I like to diffuse the skin a bit, but it's not going to do as a good job as Photoshop. If I wanted to get rid of that wrinkle, I could try the technique of the cloning technique with a very low value, like 10%, where I'm going to copy that clean skin and I'm going to copy over here. Let's see if that's going to work. Okay, let's try a little more power. So that clean skin over here. Yeah, you see, it's make it less. Let's try a little stronger value. That clean skin over here. And that clean skin here, I'm taking the same shadow. Yeah, it looks kind of weird now, I find. So let's go back a couple of times. You can do Command Z to go back a couple of times, because it looks a little blurry to me, but okay, that's fine. So it's kind of very limited what you can do, but you can still, make things a little more appealing, So same thing like clone tool, 25%. Let's see here. I want to make that a little less obvious. So I'm going to go here. So I'm taking the value that's just under the wrinkle and putting it over the wrinkle just to make it a bit less visible, And then, I can go here and I can, if you have something like a big spot, let me show you the before and after. Before, after. It's kind of subtle, I agree, but you better go by, you can do different paths with it. Because if you go too strong, it's going to be too strong. So maybe 25 is a little low. So, okay, let's make another pass here at a stronger value. Yeah, that's better. And I'm just making this a little bit less strong, and then I can go here into the heel and then opacity to 100%. There's a spot here I want to get rid of. There, here, maybe, no, this one, it's hers, it's her personality. I'm not going to touch that. And so it's already looking a little bit better. Now, I want to show you something you can do like as a finishing touch, which, two things. First, I want to make the light behind her a bit stronger. So for that, I'm going to go back to the brush, double click on effect to be at 0. Flow and density in the 90s, add a lot of exposure, and I'm just going to brush here, and I'm going to brush here, okay? Now, just to make that circle behind her a little stronger. Okay, now you see, if you click here, show overlay mask, you can see where it has been brushed. And I want to erase, I just wanted here, the red, I want it to be outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the Alt key. It's an eraser now. I'm going to make sure Auto Mask at first is off and make sure my brush is small. So I'm here and I'm just going to brush on her face and make it really just go on her face like this, okay? And then when I get close to the outside, so when it comes to the outside, when it comes to this border here, you are better off using the Auto Mask feature. So then you hold on the Option key, So whenever you press the Alt key, it becomes an eraser. The Auto Mask is going to be in whatever state it was before. So I want it to be on now this time, and I'm holding the Option key. I got a minus, and I just want to take the red a little bit here, a little bit out, especially here on the skin. I want to give the illusion that the light is coming from behind her. I actually like that just a little bit. And check this out. I'm going to take Show Mask Overlay out. And now, with that brush alone, I'm basically putting more or less light behind her, which I think is kind of cool. Okay, and the last trick, which is a finishing trick, which is kind of cool. I'm going to brush. So I'm going to take a brush, double click on Effect. And this time I'm going to go like, take Auto Mask out, flow and density, 100%. I want to dodge and burn this image even more. So dodging and burn, I want to make, her highlights brighter and her darkness darker, but I want to do it like locally. So the way to do that is I'm just going to take a brush and I'm just going to brush everywhere. Okay, I'm just going to brush everywhere on her face. It's going to make her face look really too bright like this. Okay, and then I'm going to go here in the range mask of luminance. And remember, we can do a mask here, and I want to just, basically, I want this to be only on the highlights. Remember, the highlights is here, the shadows is here. So if I do this, okay, and I look at the mask, you see what's white is where the effect is going to appear. Okay, and I really want to make it very small. I can maybe smooth the mask out a little bit. I can smooth the mask out a little bit. And check this out. So I'm going to bring this down. So you without it, with it. It just makes some of the parts brighter and some of the parts darker. But because there is the mask feature, it does it. If I didn't have the mask feature, it would be everywhere. And with the mask feature, it's just on some of the highlights. It just makes a little sort of like a local contrast. And I'm going to do the opposite with the with another brush. Go dark this time, only on her face. So I'm going to add darkness to her face like this. Voila. And then auto mask. No, not auto mask. Sorry. Range mask on luminance. And this time I'm going to go the opposite. I just want to make some of the darkness a little stronger. And it just adds a really cool trick to a little dodge and burn to your portrait. And I want to show you before all the brush strokes, after all the brush strokes. Makes quite a difference. And here I want to show you just before that one last adjustment here. Hold on, am I on the right thing? Yes, I'm on the right thing. Well, it doesn't really make a difference here. The black, let's see, let's go all the way here. Maybe I went a little too strong on my mask here. So let's see, I still want it to make a difference. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Yes, and you're just adding some darkness locally. It's very subtle, but you know, it does work. So here, that's the mask that we are having right now. So it's only adding a little more darkness. Oh, it's adding a little more darkness just on the hairs and on the skin. That's why it's not doing anything. Because okay, let's see if I can do like this. Yeah, I wanted to add some on her face, but then less value, just a little bit of darkness, a little bit of dodging. Yeah, you just have to play around with the settings. And if you want to know what a brush did, like for example, you can just go over the brush and see where you brushed. Okay, that's the one behind. Let's see, what is this one? That's the one where I'm all over her face, where I added this exposure. Check it out before the exposure, after. Just make some of the highlights of her face a little stronger. I wanted like a very powerful portrait. So voila, it's kind of very subtle. It's a little technical. So this is the before, and this is the after. But voila, that's what you can do with Lightroom Portrait in Lightroom.